What do you think are the major cultural misconceptions about romance and relationships that have contributed to the decline of marriage? I'll give you one of mine, and then I'll hear yours. And there's a lot to choose from. We've already talked about some of them. I think, and I've talked before about this idea, popularized, though not invented, of course, by a lot of the Disney movies that my generation grew up on. But this idea that you got to find your soulmate. You find your soulmate, and then you marry your soulmate, and then you'll be happily ever after. And the problem with that idea is that it gives you this notion that there's one person out there of the 8 billion who was destined for you in the stars, and you have to find that person. And if you find them, then everything's going to be fine. It's going to work out. But then, of course, it's like, well, you might end up marrying someone who's not that one person of 8 billion. Mm. And then what happens when you get married and then you actually meet your real soulmate? So what I like to say is that a soulmate is not someone you make your soulmate through marriage. It's in the act of saying I do that you're choosing, you're selecting them and saying to them, you are my soulmate because I chose you.
Right.
You are the one because I chose you. It's not, I didn't choose you because you're the one because I chose you. And I think when you look at it that way, you're taking more control over your relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's I actually think that a slight variant of that really preserves what is most beautiful in those Disney concepts. Because I would argue that person is your soulmate then. Like that they are exactly the wonderful, perfect, flawed person they're supposed to be. And they see you as the wonderful, perfect, flawed person that you are. And you're their person, and they're going to commit to you, warts and all. They're going to take the best parts of you and the worst parts of you, and they're going to love you. Like, again, love you as a feeling and love you as a verb. And I think that's like the most beautiful thing. What I think is the problem with like the Disney version of romance, or what I would call like the rom-com. Like I think rom-coms is like porn for women, and it really is this idea that you'll find this one and then it'll just stay perfect. It'll start perfect, or it'll start with like a little wacky, zany, it's not going to work out. And then it'll be perfect. And then once it's perfect forever. And only in Titanic did that actually happen because he dies. Like if he'd stayed alive, in 6 months, she'd have been like, all right, enough painting with the French girls. What are you doing? Come on, like get a job. You got to get it together. Like the truth is, the Disney films and all the things, they all end with like the kiss and the crescendo of the music. And then it doesn't show you like the day-to-day life that is challenging because the world's coming at you all the time. And kids are amazing and they solidify your bond, but they're also super antagonistic to your bond. You can't, just like do whatever you want as a couple anymore. You can't, have sex every time you want to. You can't go on dates as often as you'd like to. You're committed to these kids and you might have the best plans in the world of what you're going to do. And then one of them gets a vomiting virus and you're like, all right, that's it. I guess we're not doing that. But again, that can be a beautiful imperfection if we hold it in the right esteem. I think you're absolutely right that we have created this idea of a soulmate, that you're going to meet this person and they're going to be the best friend, best roommate, best conversationalist, best lover, best co-parent, best travel companion, all of it. And if they get any of it wrong, ever, you found the wrong one. You picked the wrong one. The right one might be out there somewhere, and it might just be your secretary, or it might just be your tennis instructor. And that, to me, that feels really, really unfair to do to people. But we continue to shove it down everybody's throats because it makes for great films, great content. I think you want to believe, but I don't think it's that far of a jump. Like what you described is not unromantic of a sentiment to say. Like,
I don't think so.
I think it's a very beautiful sentiment because it's acknowledging our imperfection, like the inevitability of our disappointing each other at some point if we're going to be so closely tied together, but that we're not going to give up. Like we're not going to give up on each other. We're not going to give up on this thing we're building together. And that's a beautiful, beautiful sentiment that is worthy of esteem.
Talking about cultural trends, one of the big ones, of course, is people are getting married a lot later. Significantly later. I think the age of first marriage now for men is 30.
30s. Yeah, it's in the early 30s.
Early 30s. And, you go back 100 years, it was probably 10 years younger than that.
Totally.
So do you think that is your experience in your profession, is that a positive development? Are people less or more likely to get divorced when they get married later? Does it have no effect?
I don't know the numbers on that. What I can say is from where I'm sitting, from practicing in the court system and exclusively doing, hundreds, if not thousands of divorces now, I think the later in life people get married, the more defined sense of self they have, and the more challenging it is for them to unify that self with another person. But when people marry younger, they're still in that transition stage where they haven't really, built who they are yet. And so it presents a different, unique kind of challenges. Now, again, I think there's a change in when people have children too. People used to just get married and you'd have kids. If you didn't, I remember my grandmother saying, because my then wife and I, we were married for 2 months and she got pregnant with our son. And I remember people would do the math, they would be looking, I'd be seeing them say, oh, when did you get married? And when is she due? And we've been engaged for 2 years. But I remember my grandmother saying to me when she was growing up, she was like, if you weren't pregnant within 6 months of getting married, people want to know why you weren't sleeping together. And you didn't wait until you had the perfect conditions for the baby to arrive. You were like, yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. And that was part of what built the bond between the two of you, was overcoming that adversity together and that challenge together. We had nothing when we met each other, and now we've built the things that we have. So I think that there is something lost in getting married later in life, both that you don't have as many opportunities to grow together and endure together through challenging times, and also because you have such a defined sense of self that becomes more and more solidified, a routine that's more and more solidified. You've probably, in the current culture, had a lot more sexual partners prior to marrying. So you're going to be doing a lot of comparing in terms of your sexual satisfaction. And there's been a lot of research on that. So I think that these are all factors that play into it. But again, we don't look at it in an honest, agenda-free way. Everybody kind of brings their own. They look at the same set of data and go, oh, this proves that men suck. Oh, no, it proves that women suck. Oh, no, it proves that you should never get married. No, it proves you should get married much younger. And they're just taking the same data set and just all extrapolating from it whatever point they want to make. Their prejudgment of what the outcome should be, they find data in that pool to support it. But I don't think it's an honest enterprise.